package. So we've got everybody's favorite thing, a box from the internet. And what's in this box is of great importance to anybody from the professional mechanic to the backyard weekend hobbyist, and that is another chemical degreaser. So what makes this stuff exclusive over the competitors? Whether you're degreasing parts on a bicycle or a Boeing, it is actually safe for aluminum. So safe, in fact, Boeing themselves have approved it for use on aircraft. And today we're going to find out how it does in a parts washer. Now, that's not to say that Boeing doesn't also approve municipal city tap water, but all things considered, it is quite the accolade. So first and foremost, this is an aqueous-based cleaner, otherwise water. So it's not petroleum or solvent-based. It's not like cleaning something with gasoline, if that's what you're used to. So having some cautious optimism would be a good thing here. In turn, that makes it non-flammable, non-corrosive, and actually biodegradable. But it's not like you're going to be drinking this stuff or watering your plants with it. But because it can be used in a complete waste rinse-off situation like washing a boat or a trailer, it is somewhat environmentally friendly. Now there are clear instructions not only on the back of the bottle, but in the SDS material that state not to allow this onto pavement or asphalt. I don't know why, but that's good to know. It does also, of course, state to not allow the rinsates, which is your runoff, into waterways, storm drains, groundwater systems. So apparently it does degrade to its base elements after 6 months, if that's of any interest to you. Now, I'm not expecting this stuff to magically make hard-packed grease and grime vanish into thin air like a can of brake clean would. I'm more interested really in its kind of overnight soaking abilities and of course general cleaning abilities in the top tray. I'm fortunate to have quite a large parts cleaner. It's a 40-gallon from Jegs. You can hold about 20 gallons of solution. And it's nice to be able to soak parts underneath while cleaning stuff on the top tray. Recently I had about 20 gallons of Purple Power in this, mixed to a ratio of 1:1, so it was quite strong. Not a big fan of Purple Power for a variety of reasons, but it was cheap and convenient at the time. That's mostly how I wound up with it. But as it goes for all degreasers, it works better when they're warm. I will at some point probably put some heating elements under this for colder parts of the year. So I primarily do automotive work here in my little home shop. Cleaned a lot of parts in this thing. It's something as small as basic fasteners all the way up to engine blocks. But having cleaned many aluminum parts in this tank with a 1:1 ratio of Purple Power, was never really a big fan of that extra step of having to thoroughly rinse the part off afterwards and just never really being that confident I got all of it off. So it was long overdue for a change. A lot of you might be in a similar position trying to find something that's safe on aluminum but also effective. So going back to the SDS material, it does specifically state not to let the product dry on the surface of whatever you're working on. So of course there'll be that extra step of having to rinse the part off, but it would be done a lot less stressful as this is designed to be safe on aluminum, not caustic. So in an effort to not lose your interest any more than I probably already have, I'm going to shut up and we're going to get this thing filled up. I'm going to follow the directions this time and dilute this to a 1:3 ratio as it says on the bottle and the recommended stuff on the data sheets. Dilution rate of 1:3 in a parts washer. That is pretty much its strongest ratio from what I can find. So 1 gallon of this stuff to 3 gallons of water. Now having 4 gallons of the solution, that'll be 12 gallons of water. That'll yield us about 16 gallons of cleaning stuff. So as for the water, we only use the finest Chuck Norris affiliated measuring devices on this channel. So I'm going to measure out 4 gallons into the bucket, make a mark for the next 2 trips. A professional would probably recommend and use distilled water. So anyway. And I'd say right there is fine. So because this thing's been empty for a while, We're going to go ahead and follow our ABCs of always be cautious and pour the water in first. And there's a couple questionable spots, but let's check for leaks. All right, here's another 4 gallons. So here's the last 4 gallons. All right, let's go ahead and purge whatever might be left in this pump and line into here. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dump the 4 gallons of Simple Green Extreme into our 12 gallons of water. All right, so we've got 12 gallons of dihydrogen monoxide and 4 gallons of Simple Green Extreme. So let's go find something to clean. I'm going to find some stuff to soak overnight and find some stuff to clean right up here on the tray. All right, guys, what I've got for you is piston rod combo out of a late model Hemi, along with an engine mount and valve cover for that same engine. I think this will give us the best idea on how the Simple Green cleans packed on carbon. This we will not be soaking. We're just going to put in the top tray and start cleaning. Got a Holley carburetor. I do forget the exact model and CFM. It's not that important. We're going to take this bowl off and let this one soak. And we have some intake and exhaust valves off of a Gen 2 EA 888 Volkswagen Audi 2-liter turbo engine. These are of course steel, so we're going to let this soak in the bottom half overnight along with the aluminum bowl. It's an Edelbrock Performer for my 289. I may reuse this at some point, so might as well clean it now. Won't hurt anything. That bag only had the intake valves. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and set this in here, let it soak. Okay, I got all the guts out of it. So we're going to go ahead and let this thing soak overnight. So, now that we're on the phone, let's go ahead and put it in. Ooh, pretty. Good camera work, Dan. Alright guys, well you might see my clothes change. I'm going to let these 2 parts soak overnight, and I'm going to start cleaning all that other stuff tomorrow. I'm going to call it a day. I'll see you in a couple seconds. Not exactly 24 hours later, but close enough. So we'll go ahead and pull those out. Alright, so we've got some very basic forms of brushes here. We've got plastic bristle, steel bristle, and brass. So that'll primarily be what we're using on top of our little parts washer nozzle most of you are familiar with. So start with the aluminum piece. It's got that dull finish I kind of expected. Start with the plastic. Yep, looks like dull aluminum. Go ahead and bump it up to the steel. Now obviously to get this nice and shiny you'd want to actually polish it afterwards, but this is at least getting it somewhat clean. Or I'll leave it, let me leave it back in here and I'll rinse it here in a minute. So let's take a look at our valve. We'll do the brass on this one. Got quite a bit of that off. There's still some embedded carbon on there, but that's not terrible. All right, let me go rinse these off. Obviously it's not fully clean, but it really doesn't matter that much. Now the Simple Green is not going to act like an aluminum bright. It's not going to magically polish this stuff up overnight, no matter how long you leave it in there for. But it cleans it up pretty good. You'll have to polish this up with your Dremel or your air tool, whatever you wind up using afterwards, but it's kind of what you'd expect. And the same with this valve here. Obviously, if I wanted to, I would just take a screwdriver or my wire wheel over there. I'd just take it to a bench grinder and get all the hard packed stuff off. That's usually how I clean these anyway. But again, just to show you what it can do and what it can't do. I think that's a factory coating, actually. I don't remember. Definitely did something. So I'm not cheating. I just wanted to clean off the obvious stuff before we dunk this. Don't want to dirty up the new solution for no reason. I'm not reusing this, so of course we're dealing with aluminum and steel. A good before shot I should have got earlier on the other stuff. We could use the plastic, but I don't really think it's going to do a whole lot. So I'll move on to the brass. That was just kind of a quick wipe down with the plastic. Alright guys, let's rinse this off real quick and we'll take a look at it. Alright, so that turned out actually pretty good. Now if I would have kept going, I'm sure I could have got all this stuff off. This would be another candidate for let it soak overnight. So that turned out fairly well, I mean, because you're not going to get much more packed on carbon than on a piston. But that Simple Green was reacting pretty good. I would have rough spots where I thought, oh well, that's all I'm going to get out of there. You know, you flip it over or go to another area, and then you go back. You know, you go back to the other spot you were just on, and you start getting more off with just a brass bristle brush. Now, if I had better brushes, I'm actually running a little light. I'm missing quite a few, and some are spread out my shop and in here in the house and what have you. But maybe I should have been a little bit more prepared for this video, but I'm pleased with that. So if you have an older engine and you're just doing an overhaul restoration and you want to clean up your pistons, I could definitely recommend the Simple Green Extreme. You're just going to have to take a little bit more time on it, obviously, or at least just let your stuff soak. Really the only thing left is this oily valve cover, which I'm sure nobody will be surprised. It's going to do a fine job on that, I'm sure. And then this aluminum engine mount, we'll see what it can do on that. It's likely going to just wind up with the same finish this piece has, but this piece, my intake on the 289, that I'm looking forward to seeing how well that cleans up. That'll make for a good before and after. Alright, let's go rinse this stuff off. Alright guys, not much to expect on this. Almost looks like I didn't do anything, but it's cleaner than it was. And this is something you'd want to just take a wire wheel in and drill to. So this turned out okay. Shame on me though, I missed a couple spots. It's kind of hard when everything's covered in that solution and foam. But it's as you would expect. It's still a little bit wet. Again, there's spots I missed. Definitely brought the texture back out. And the inside, no surprise, of course that's drying in a weird way. I did rinse this off. Not sure if I need to rinse this off again. I don't know. It just looks like very dry plastic. So let me prep this thing and we'll get to cleaning that. That's what the bottom looks like before and what the top looks like before. Some of you might be against dunking an aluminum intake in a parts washer, but it'll be alright. The usage guidelines for gasket material, it does say to soak to aid in its removal, but normally for mating surface, gasket material, silicone, what have you, I will usually just use like a nylon cup brush, or I have some buffing wheels that are made of like a synthetic material that'll come in here and clean all this off. So I'm not really expecting this to get all this embedded material off the mating surface, but I'm sure it'll soften it up somewhat. So again, you reach a point even with brushes and whatever solvent you're using on something like this, it's really to get the bigger stuff off. A piece like this you would want a media blast, or even pressure, use a steam jenny and pressure wash this thing with scalding hot water and a different kind of degreaser. There's multiple ways to clean these things. Again, letting this soak overnight would probably yield a much better result. The video is more to show you how this stuff does out of the bottle. And everybody has their preferences on how they clean certain components, whether it be aluminum, steel, or cast iron. I've polished aluminum intakes with steel cup wire wheels before with very good results, actually. I'm not going to spend an hour with brushes doing what I can do in 10 minutes in a sandblasting cabinet, so. All right, let's go rinse this off and take a look at it. So it didn't come out terrible. I cheated a little bit and used my leaf blower to dry it off. And obviously, as I stated before, letting this thing soak and having a little bit better brushes could get in there, all those nooks and crannies. And don't forget, I have a different method of getting all this embedded gasket stuff off. Well, that didn't take long. So guys, a parts washer is still a very old school way of cleaning parts. You're only going to get so much out of it. Some of the best ones are heated and pressurized, and they pretty much look like a sandblasting cabinet, but you're spraying heated solvent on a piece. But an old school method is still an industry standard, and it's nice that there's so many different products available that you can try out and see what's more effective than others. Just have to be leery about how to dispose of them, of course. I know we primarily did aluminum today, some composite, and of course a little bit of steel. And again, that's not even really, I don't normally put stuff like this in a parts washer. I just bust the carbon off of them and clean them on a wire wheel. But to each their own, everybody has their own methods of cleaning parts. The soaking method didn't really impress me very much, but I'm not really sure what I expected. Really, with a lot of the nooks and crannies on more complicated pieces, you'd want to get a drill and like a brush like this and get down in all the little crevices. So we can talk about that all day, but most of you already know that. This is really just for getting the grit, grease, and grime off of whatever piece you're working on for whatever reason. If there's more steps afterwards, or you're just going to put something back together, or you're rebuilding the whole engine. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, the next step is going to be the sandblasting cabinet, and then polish. Well guys, I hope you got something out of this video. 4 gallons of this was less than 80 bucks shipped to my house. So, and am I impressed with it? I wouldn't say impressed with it, but I'm perfectly happy. I'm perfectly happy with it. It cleans just about as good as Purple Power, and it smells a lot better. And you don't have the stress of, is this stuff eating up my aluminum, you know, which it seems to be doing fine. Guys, that about wraps it up. I kind of wish this went a little bit different, but I guess it is what it is at this point. I've had a lot of technical issues with my GoPros, so we'll just end it there. Well guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.